to the weekly narrative, aka the Alt Centrist podcast. Glad to see you all here. I mean, we've already had 5,000 people in the arena waiting for us before we even got here, so I appreciate that. You guys are ready and waiting for some more content. I don't know if you saw the stream last week, Delaney, but it was pretty good. I went off for like 2.5
nice
hours.
And spicy.
It was pretty spicy. Yeah, we covered a lot of good topics, and hopefully you got a good rest because we're gonna go around two again this week. We got a bunch of good topics on the docket today. We got Kizza in chat, Holly over there. I see you guys. What's going on, Paul? What's up, Paul? Welcome. Grab a drink, get comfortable, because we're gonna be talking about record-breaking drug overdoses today. Good news. Starting to show up with some good news. Some actual good news. Support for handgun bans reaches all-time low, actually. Shocking.
Oh.
Gun control news there. We've got an update on that Kabul drone strike and the narrative behind that. Unshocking, to say the least, but turns out they're actually finally admitting that they completely screwed up on that one. And we're going to talk about what that means, because we're not just going to take a dump on these people for being wrong. We're going to look at what that actually means for America. I don't know if you know this or not, but biking is racist. And if you didn't know that, then I'm going to tell you why that is today on this stream. Yes, thanks to some prominent black scholars, we've identified yet another racist sphere that has yet to be corrected in America, and that is biking. Kind of obviously just more of a funny story. But the main meat and potatoes of today is, I don't know if you've been seeing this, we got to talk about this heart attack stuff. The heart attacks are coming out of the woodwork left and right, and I have literally seen an article of blaming heart attacks on everything. You name it, and I've seen an article that they're saying the heart attacks are because of this. All the increased heart attacks, it's that, it's this, it's that. So we're gonna go over like 5 or 6 different articles, and just look at the general absurdity about how we're all refusing to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and blaming everything except for the you-know-whats for the increase in heart attacks. So we'll go through a few articles on there. That's going to be fun. OSHA suspended their vax mandate enforcement. Great news there.
Woohoo!
Yep. So we got a little bit of time anyway before we all work for the government again. So we get some time off. We just started, but this is how the government works, right? You just start, you get a position with the government, and you immediately get a long vacation. You don't have to do any work. It's a great position. We don't get paid for it. But anyway, we don't have to enforce their mandate for them for a while. We'll talk about that. And then we've got some booster news. The booster narrative is already starting to fall apart. And I think this is hilarious because we've got multiple narratives coming out from across the world about how, number one, we don't know enough about the boosters or the vaccine to tell how many boosters we need. And then we've got some vax passport requirements in France that say if you go without a booster for 6 months, you need your passport is no longer valid. So what does that mean? We'll find out. Let's get into it. Let's run the intro and let's get started.
Yep. Chin straps on, folks.
Yeah, watch out for that big head Jack Dorsey. He's coming for you. All right, we had a couple stereos come in during the intro. Let's hop over to those and get a little warm up. Kizza with a couple. What's going on, Kizza?
Did Jeremy have a little bit of soy? Did he have a soy latte? Jeremy, is there something you want to tell us? Is there something you want to tell to your dear Supreme Emperor?
Soy lattes. I don't drink coffee.
Yuck.
Yeah, first of all, don't drink coffee. But no, are you talking about my mug? So those of you listening, I have, today I'm using my they, them mug. I have a pronoun mug so that you guys know which pronouns I'm identifying as today. It is fluid. I was telling Delaney beforehand, I don't feel too solid in my masculinity today. So I'm going to go with the they, them just to cover all the bases and make sure I'm not, misidentifying myself. So don't get it twisted, okay? They, them. Let's jump into the first story of the day. and talk about this drug overdose stuff. This is pretty awful, but also kind of a sign of the times. And this is goes into the bigger narrative we've been talking about for quite a long time here, and this is the general destruction, decline of the West. And I think there's multiple ways to interpret this, but let's read through the article a little bit here from CNN Health, the most trusted name in news. Drug overdose deaths top 100,000 annually for the first time, driven by fentanyl, CDC data show. So we're looking at over 100,000 deaths in a year just to drug overdoses. Now, for those of you who believe in the numbers from COVID, that's like a 20% of the COVID deaths, I think, from the same time period. So that during the same time period, we're looking at about 500,000, quote unquote, heavy, bolded, italic, quote unquote, 500,000 deaths from COVID. So you would think that this would get a little bit more attention, something as 20% as deadly as COVID, but it's really not getting any attention at all. America's drug epidemic is the deadliest it's ever been. New federal data suggests more than 100,000 people died of drug overdoses in the United States during the 12-month period ending April 2021, according to provisional data provided Wednesday by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's a new record high. We're breaking records here, people, not the good kind either. And overdose deaths jumped 28% from the same period a year earlier, and nearly doubling over the past 5 years. Opioids continue to be the driving cause of drug overdose deaths. Synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl, from China, because they're the ones manufacturing all of it, coming sometimes through the open border on the south, caused nearly 2/3 of all drug overdose deaths in the 12-month period ending April 2021, up 49% from the year before. So what does this mean? I don't know. What do you think, Delaney? Are we screwed?
I mean, I think we're pretty much screwed. I've said this when we shut down everything, in 2020. I predicted that the amount of people dying from overdoses when it comes to drugs and alcohol is going to skyrocket because everybody's at home, they're depressed, they can't go to work, and we are in the aftermath of all of that right now. And so it doesn't surprise me that it's everything is just getting amped up even more.
Yeah, I've got a nice graphic on the screen there for those of you who are watching the video stream here. It's pretty dramatic, and in the crypto world, this is approaching, or in the stock world or any kind of charting world, we would say that this is approaching a parabolic growth, meaning exponential growth, as if this is about to go, rocket to the moon. But that's just my crypto-minded brain looking at this chart here. This is so the strange thing to me is really about how, number one, we're not mentioning this at all. 100,000 people dying, and I think I know why. I think this is my theory, and it kind of just clicked in my head as I was actually reading through this. This is not paid attention to because 100,000 people, most of that 100,000 people that are dying to that are poor white people. This is largely a problem of white people, I think. And you look at places like the Appalachian Mountains ranges, all the areas over there, a lot of poverty, a lot of deaths, overdoses because of things like this. My theory is that this is allowed to happen, not necessarily orchestrated or intentional, but it's allowed to continue without any kind of attention at all, because we see that it's just largely affecting white people, and because of that, we don't really care. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'd say that that's pretty accurate. I mean, most of the people, from what I can gather, that are abusing these drugs and abusing fentanyl are, mostly white people. I mean, there are black people that use it as well, but the people that seem to be dying from it or getting a lot of harm from it are vastly majority white people. Like you said, then they're poor as well. So
it's the dog that isn't barking.
Help.
Yeah, and it's because if there was any kind of racial discrepancy in these statistics at all, that CNN would immediately put that right in the headline or in the first sentence. 70% of overdose deaths in America are African Americans. America has an overdose problem. America has a racist drug system or something like that. They would find a way, but this is a case where they can't even stretch this story to turn it into a racist thing. So that's what's telling me the dog that isn't barking means that, well, obviously this is affecting largely white people, so we don't really care. But
Yeah, nobody gives a shit about white people anymore unless it's white people doing injustice on to black people or minority people. Then all of a sudden people give a crap about white people. But when it's white people dying, it's like, yeah, let's cheer it on. Die, white people, die.
yeah,
It's awful.
and I talked about last week how the Rittenhouse thing is largely an anti-white thing as well. So a lot of people like to take the angle that it's anti-gun thing, anti-freedom thing, anti-American thing. At the core, at the root,
No.
if you look at the messaging, especially from the race hustlers like Joy Reid, the mentally ill, insane leftists who actually get a platform on TV, they are going at it from a 100% race angle. These are white tears when Rittenhouse cries. Guys, the anti-white narrative, and this is kind of why I'm bringing this up. This isn't about drugs. This isn't even really about China attacking us, which you could also take that angle with it. This is China literally attacking us and killing American citizens with their own drugs. You could take that angle. You could take the border angle. There's a lot of different angles you could take with this opioid and overdose story stuff. But I think primarily what we should be focusing on is the fact that beneath all of that, this is really just part of an anti-white thing. And when you're looking at narratives and how they're enforced or reinforced or pushed upon the people of a particular population, it's not always explicit. They're not always going to come out and say white people are bad. So you got to always look for the dog that isn't barking to also see where the narrative is being enforced. And I think this is a clear case of one of those situations where this is largely affecting just white people. So we're just going to not pay any attention to it. Biden's not talking about it. We're not making any kind of, groups in the government, task forces or nothing like that for this. We're not, no executive orders, nothing, not even 1 minute on coverage on the news. You get the point. Let's see. We got Paul and Agent Carmichael in stereo.
If I'm being honest, heels up, come swallow, Paul My Harris. Being so unpopular that they're trying to railroad her before the septuagenarian empty suit that is the duly elected president was not on my 2021 bingo card.
That is interesting. So we're seeing little rumblings of Kamala Harris and her team as if she's on a different team than Biden, kind of being upset that the docket she's been given by Biden is bad, or what she's partaking in with Biden is poorly orchestrated, and like they're setting her up for failure if she were to come in or get any more power. I'm starting to see little rumblings of that narrative happening too, and it is interesting. So yeah, that wasn't on my bingo card either.
Yeah, definitely not on my bingo card. I mean, I kind of have been thinking that they might get rid of Biden just to put her into power. But if they're going to sabotage her before she's even has a chance, then I don't feel bad for her at all. That's what you signed up for, hon.
Hey, Delaney, I just looked at the stream and I noticed like you are like way down here. And I'm like way up here. Is there any way you can tilt your camera down so that you're like in the middle of the frame?
Here, me push my chair up.
There we go.
I
just for the visual aesthetics, that's all. Let's go to Agent Carmichael.
Okay.
I just hopped in. I don't really know what we're talking about, but I've heard a little bit what you're saying. I definitely think it's really gross how we have to sort of like describe or sort of like add the separation to any events and anything bad that happens to anyone. Like, local black man or local white man does this. It's like, why can't we just like, a human has experienced something? Why do we have to specify? Why do we have to appeal to people's subconscious? And they're like, well, can't we all just see each other as humans? That's what you're trying to do. But the media, especially the liberal media, always has to focus on race and like makes that a factor in everything. Like okay, someone commits a crime, someone is a victim of something. Your first instinct should not be, well, what was their race? It should be another human has had an experience. What do we think of that? Like, it's just a disgusting, racist way of of doing things. So
it's true, and we see it happening. We know the pattern, so we can use it. And when we see that pattern not occurring, like we do in this case with the opium, the overdoses, if it was black people overdosing, like I said, you can bet your top dollar they would spin that angle. So when you don't see that angle, that's when it's actually a novelty. That's when there's something to notice. When something is not spun as a racist thing, because like, oh, wait, what? Why aren't they doing this as a racist story? You know what I'm saying? So that's what makes it noteworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate,
Absolutely.
but that's just the world that we live in now. And I think, honestly, if I'm being generous, I don't think that these people are all anti-white necessarily. Most of them are. Don't get me wrong. Most of these people hate white people like Joy Reid, but most of them know that that's just going to get more clicks, and it's going to get them more views, and it's going to get them more money. So it's just the capitalistic incentive that they're operating under that makes them do that. Because you know, the anti-white dollar, as Bill Hicks would say, big dollar. Anti-white, big dollar right now, big dollar. Okay, let's go to the next story of the day. This one is good news. We'll balance it out. I'll give you some good news too, not just
Oh.
terrible, awful news. You guys, I know there's a lot of people in chat who love guns. Now, I do also enjoy guns, and I think we kind of made this prediction. I'm not gonna go out on a record and say like I predicted this, but we kind of generally said that as the support for banishing and abolishing police goes up, people are gonna realize that as stuff goes down, they're gonna have to protect themselves somehow, and the best way to do that generally is with a gun. So now, of
Hell
course,
yeah.
the inevitable result of that, people reacting to reality, responding to reality, things that they're observing with their own eyes and not just what the media is telling them, they are going out and buying guns. Starting from the riots last year, as soon as that happened, even the leftists were rushing out and buying guns. They've maybe some of the gun guys can speak up on this, but I don't know. Are there still massive shortages on ammo and firearms? Are there still like week-long waits for purchasing firearms and waiting for them to get delivered and whatnot? Because last I heard, that was still the case because people want to protect themselves, and the cops aren't really going to do it for you. From Forbes.com, support for handgun ban hits record low as gun violence and sales soar during pandemic. Thank you to Gallup for providing this survey statistics. According to the article, American support for a complete ban on handguns is the lowest on record, which was kind of shocking to me, actually. According to the new Gallup poll, part of a wider dip in support for stricter gun control measures as gun sales, violent crime, and gun violence soared during the COVID-19 pandemic. Who would have thought that violence, crime, and all that would have soared when you lock people down, put them in a state of anxiety, fear, take away their jobs? It's shocking that these second-order effects are actually taking place. But, of course, we all know these people in office right now, they don't have any ability to see into the future. It's all about instant gratification. It's all about what makes me feel good, what makes the voters feel good, makes them check that D on the next ballot when they go to the polls. So is this surprising to you, Delaney? Because this was actually shocking to me.
It's not surprising to me. I read an article about how over the last year, the amount of women going and getting their handgun licenses and the amount of, just in California, has skyrocketed. So this doesn't surprise me that now that more people are arming themselves, realizing how good of a tool a handgun or just a firearm in general can be in protecting yourself. It doesn't surprise me now that people actually got educated on, are getting and have gotten educated on handguns and firearms in general. That the support for the banning of them, people are gonna be like, no, I just learned how to use this thing. Screw off.
So, key facts here from the article: less than 1 in 5 Americans support a complete ban on handguns in the U.S. So 19%. And I subscribe to the Scott Adams rule of polls and surveys, and that 25% of the population is always going to be retards, no matter what. They're always going to answer wrong, incorrectly on these. So you can just take 25% of any survey, any poll results that you see, just set that aside. You can discount that. So in this particular case, 19%, that's actually beyond the 25% threshold. So this is like way above where we would expect this, even accounting for the retardation in the country. which is, I think, really good news. It's the lowest level of support since Gallup began polling in the 1980s. So, again, I mean, cause and effect here. It's not a big shocker to expect that when you want to abolish the police, and we're seeing violence just being unchallenged, unpunished across the country, people want to defend themselves with handguns. And ironically, here's the irony, is that more shooting deaths happen because of handguns than because of assault rifles or assault
Right.
military-style weapons. So
Right.
the guns that kill more people actually have the most support. And that, is, again, is a testament to, of course, the media just absolutely being incorrect, just lying. I mean, every single thing that the media has told us in the last four or 5 years has been an absolute lie. So this is just one of those many things. And I think that's some good news. So get your guns,
It's
let's
great.
get some land, and let's, defend our property and
Don't.
not be violent.
Right. Don't take my guns.
Let's see. We had a couple stereos come in. Let's go to Holly from Canada.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents too. It's the same thing with any mass shootings or any crazy shootings that happen down there. You hear about the mass shooting, and then all of a sudden you don't hear about it anymore. You know exactly that at that point that it wasn't a white person.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a good point. And she's referring to the dog that doesn't bark. You know, when we see a story like the overdoses where they don't acclaim racism, there's something else going on. Same thing with the shootings. When there's a mass shooting and it's in the news for 1 hour and then it just disappears, which I think there was one like just a couple weeks ago because, the shooter's not white.
Yeah, I remember that story. It was like a black kid, and he went to a school, and he shot up the school, and immediately got bailed the next day.
That one. Yeah, what? I mean, could you imagine if a white kid got bailed after shooting at his school, and how the aneurysm that Joy Reid would have about that?
Yeah, or
White tears.
remember what was it? It was like earlier this year. There was that white dude that went into all the massage parlors and shot all those those Asians, and all of a sudden it's Stop Asian Hate Crimes and Stop Asian Killings.
Yeah, they really
And now,
tried to
Go
push
ahead.
the Asian hate, Stop Asian Hate thing, and even that just kind of disappeared off the edge of the cliff because we started to realize, like, hey, we know this is all black people doing this, right? Like 98% of these attacks are from black people, so that really just died off too. Let's see. Hold on a sec. I'm just getting the chat up on my other screen here. Yeah, the Las Vegas shooting. We can't even talk about that one. We'll probably get banned off YouTube for talking about that. Let's go to Agent Carmichael.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed this after, talking to people in the last few years. I mean, it's amazing how many more liberals these days are in total support of owning guns and guns for everybody. It's like, you're talking to some of these people, it's like, yeah, go green, like, oh, kill anyone who throws litter, but, let's all have guns. It's like, it's really weird. Like, these people, like they're starting to open up to understand, like, oh, I should protect myself, and, I shouldn't prevent others from doing the same. But it's weird to see, like, a lot of really liberal people be totally open to the idea of, like, guns. And, yeah, it's definitely weird, but it's definitely the trend these days.
Do you know, Delaney, have you ever heard of the phenomenon of the uncanny valley? Do you know what that is?
no.
So the uncanny valley refers to the relation between like fake graphics or AI or generated humans and then real humans. And then even when a human is generated and it looks, I saw you just went offline, that's fine.
Yeah, I did.
When a human looks perfect or nearly perfect, but it's still computer generated, you can sense something is off about it, something is strange, and it makes you feel kind of really weird. When it's really, really close to being human, really close to being perfect, I think we're seeing something like that with the leftists and the guns, because the leftists, they're really, really close to acknowledging and understanding reality. They're just almost there.
Yeah.
And it's when it comes to life and death situations, which is something which guns represent and help defend you against, then it's funny how they're willing to compromise. And that's the only point. When it comes to a life and death, when their health is at immediate risk, then they're willing to acknowledge reality and forsake everything that CNN and MSNBC told them. That is interesting, but they won't proclaim they're pro-gun. They won't preach about it. They won't go over Twitter and say, yeah, I'm pro-gun, I just bought a gun, all that, because they still want to fit in their fake reality that they usually live in. But still, they're kind of walking in the fake reality and the real world at the same time. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting phenomenon. It just takes a whole summer of rioting and people getting killed and businesses burning down for people to come to the grips of why all the gung-ho gun owners are the way they are.
Let's see. Ben Savage says, can we get an update on the box truck build-out? Oh, well, Ben, I just got the kitchen done, and I'm actually going to be renting a property here soon to complete the construction because the place that I'm at right now, the HOA is crying about it, box truck being in the driveway. So check out the channel. I got the latest video up on there as of earlier this week, I think. So, yeah, it's a pretty good one. Techno Barbarian, by the way, is my tiny home box truck build channel. We got Osis in chat.
Yeah, guns are pretty available now for the most part, especially popular ones like Glocks. CZs are my personal favorite. They're the SPO ones coming back. I haven't had any trouble finding. I had plenty before anyway. None of this matters to me. Ammo is still, it's not rare, but it's got a nice giant COVID premium, and it sucks. And again, trying to get primers, cases, bullets, powder, anything for making your own is really hard because all the manufacturers are pumping out as much as they can and buying as much as they can. So ammo sucks still, but guns aren't too bad.
All right,
That's
there we
good.
go. That's our update from our gun guy. Osis, appreciate that. Who is also ironically living in San Francisco. Let's go to Kizza.
I would say this isn't a new phenomenon. This is just the reality of a very terrible idea and these people being directly or indirectly made a victim of it. Which is exactly why we need Kizzerism. Shameless plug.
Marxism, right? That's what you're referring to, I'm sure. Marxism is the idea that everyone's falling victim to. All right, let's
All right, I'm
go
back.
to Delaney's back.
My
Let me
video.
re-add her
Yeah, my
here.
video's back. Hello, I'm back.
Welcome back.
I got a new wireless card coming in. It's just I'm waiting for Amazon to deliver it. So hopefully that'll help.
Okay. Next story of the day is, what is it? Oh yeah, this one's fun. I'm gonna do the fun one before we get into the more serious one about Kabul, the drone strike, because we got to talk about that one for sure. But guys, we got an update for you. Every week we like to notify you as 100% European guy with white skin who identifies as a black person. I think it's my duty to inform my community that some new things are coming to light that are racist. And this week we're going to be talking about the fact that biking is racist. Yes, that's right, biking. From the Washington Post, American cycling has a racism problem.
Oh my god.
And we joked about this, several times over the last year that you could take anything, insert noun here, and then just put has a racism problem at the end of it. You could literally take has a racism problem, go into Google, and just paste that in, just has a racism problem into Google, and you'll have dozens of articles come up about psychology has a racism problem, science has a racism problem, AI has a racism problem. I didn't know. Okay, AI? Really? Seriously? Oh, yeah, that's right, because the AI keeps turning racist. I saw that article, actually. That one's kind of funny. Literally everything, and we've gotten to the point now where these people are so mentally ill and cognitively in the state of mind where they're looking for things that don't actually exist. And the question here really is, can you live in the same country as these people? Even if, I identify as black, so I'm not really worried about this. But if you were a white person and you were being targeted by these people, would you feel safe trying to forge a national identity, trying to, come together as one nation, having unity, being on the same team as these people? And I think the answer would be no. But anyway, let's go. MSN News today, in the context of increasing calls for racial justice, of course, we're always in the context of racial justice. Cycling as a leisure activity and as a way to get around appears to have a diversity problem. Oh, remember that we did one on the outdoors, a month or two ago.
Hiking.
Hiking,
Yeah, hiking and out and going out for a hike is racist.
outdoors are racist.
Mm-hmm.
USA Cycling recently revealed that its membership was 86% white. What did I tell you guys? Anywhere they can find a disparity in the statistics, they're going to point it out, even in something as stupid as cycling. So don't tell me for 1 second that if the opioid thing wasn't primarily a white attack, that they wouldn't put those statistics in there. But anyway, look at this. Oh, they're 86% white, 83% male, and 50% middle-aged. Not we're gonna not the
Racism.
not the middle-agers.
Yeah.
Beginning in June 2020, Bicycling Magazine gave space to black cyclists. Oh, we gave them space. That's good. Who testified to the racially exclusionary nature of cycling. The magazine also revealed a study of police data showing that this. Of course, they're going to talk about this. The magazine also revealed a study of police data showing that black cyclists are stopped up to 3 times as often as whites.
Oh my God.
And it reported on a recent case from Texas, which it gets even better, in which a white man beat a black cyclist while hurling racial slurs at him.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's not funny that a guy beat a black cyclist. I feel for my fellow brother for that one. But the point is, they just take one random example of something bad that happened, and they're like, guys, there's a major systemic problem here because look at this one thing that happened this one time. This white guy beat up a black dude on a bike. I mean, come on, this is written by like a 7th grader. What is this? This is retarded. But obviously we're not here to talk about the fact that bikes are racist, or even just saying, look at how funny it is that they think bikes are racist. It's to prompt a question in your head and to ask, is this a state that's repairable? Could you fix these people they're programmed? Nathan Carden from the Opinion at Washington Post. Can you fix these people? Can you decondition them from thinking this way about anything? If they're calling cycling racist, are you ever going to escape this? Let's say theoretically you fix the entire voting system, you get validatable, verifiable elections, we solve the economy, we fix the institutions, and these people still exist in the country though. Could you, even if all those things were fixed, could you still live in a country with these people like this? That's the question I think that you've got to ask yourself and assess. For me, I tend towards no. I don't know. This is like getting to beyond, like, South Africa type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, my answer would most likely be no, because I've talked to people that think like this, and even if you talk logic and try to make fair points about what they think about racial inequality in stupid institutions like the USA Cycling, they still just automatically always believe that it's racist because there's more white people than black, and I just try to be the voice of reason, saying, well, if you want more black people in USA Cycling, then have more black people join it. Like,
go buy a bike.
Go buy a bike.
I could have made a racist joke right there. I think you know what I
go buy a bike.
No, go steal a bike. Oh well. All right, there we go. I'm gonna get kicked off YouTube for that one.
You could do that.
I liked it. I liked it. I'm black. It's okay. I can make the joke anyway. But this is why they're gonna do it. This is why they're gonna do this into perpetuity, and why you need to ask yourself the question. Because in the future, going forward, any single time they can, they're gonna use the same argument that they're doing here in this article. Look at what they do in this article. They say these problems are long-standing from the beginning of the bicycle revolution in the 1890s. See, they're always going to go back to the 1800s, the 1700s, go back to slavery. They say, threatened by racial mobility, threatened by the radical mobility of the bicycle, white Southerners attempted to prevent black Americans from riding in public and sought to curtail the rise of separate black cycling culture. It doesn't matter what it is, guys. They're always going to reference back to slavery, reference back to the 1600s, 1700s, whatever it is, to make anything racist, and you're never ever going to escape it, ever. And it's only going to actually get worse because they're teaching this in schools now. And I'm not even talking about CRT. I'm talking before CRT even really became a thing. Just the racial awareness that they're bringing to the front of everyone's consciousness. This is the first thing that everyone thinks about is race. You're never going to escape it. I think this is the point that I'm trying to make is we're like beyond the event horizon of the black hole. And for those who don't know physics, the event horizon means once you pass it, you can never ever escape it. It's the laws of physics. So, yeah, it's bye. Yeah, exactly, drama. Let's see. Cycling definitely sizest in the UK. Big fashion label is fat lad at the back. Flab for short. Interesting. That's true. Now cycling has a sizest problem. Maybe an ableism problem because double amputees can't ride the bike as well. But
Well, I mean, they could get one of those hand pedal bicycles because I've seen those things around,
okay,
and those things are stupid looking.
well, then quadriplegics. I can always take it to the next level. There's always another
That is
level
true.
of absurdity I could take it to say that's ableist, that's racist.
I
That's
mean, the quadriplegics could get one of those bicycles or one of those wheelchairs that they can push with their breath.
or like a jaw one where they slide like squeeze something, and it
Yeah,
moves a bike
just
forward
squeeze
somehow.
it.
Jesus Christ, this is absurdity. This is why it's called Clown World News, people. And we should just change the name of that stream to Clown World News. I mean, we call it Clown World News on stereo, but it's a good angle to take on it, I think. Let's go. Speaking of stereo, what's going on over here? I heard some stereos come in. Let's go to Holly.
Oh, you guys joke about psychology having a racism problem. Up here, in all of the psychology courses, I guess they are, or whatever, in university, they now have mandatory diversity and sensitivity training as a part of their curriculum.
Exactly.
Also with a focus on, the indigenous people's plight and reparations and payback. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Lovely.
and before you get on a bike in Canada, you have to stand there and do the 5-minute acknowledgement that I acknowledge that we are on the land of the Chequahaqua and the Copamama and the Fluby Flabla Indians, and this is their land, and I'm going to ride my bike on it, and I'm sorry for stealing your land, but I'm going to ride my bike on it now.
Yeah, and you also need to kneel and raise your fist up for all the blacks that were sacrificed for it too.
Ben in the YouTube chat says, my pale skin is like a force field from bicycle police. Yes, that's the great thing about being pale but identifying as black is that I can slide right under the radar. I'm like a stealth bomber. You can't even see me coming. I could break so many bike laws and I wouldn't even get pulled over. Osis.
One thing that black people do like doing and are very prevalent in, and that's jogging. I mean, isn't marathon running just one really long jog?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the jogger reference there, Osis. Appreciate that. Kizit.
I propose a simple solution to these people. Those people should be all rounded up and deported straight to Antarctica. Because there's no racism in Antarctica there. Send them all there, and you please both sides. Again, this is why we need Kizarism.
Okay, I like that. I'm down with that. If we can figure out the logistics, I think that's a viable solution. We got a new name in here. Haven't seen before. MJB.
Infrastructure bill this month.
While you're going on stating that, I'm just so happen to watch these politicians on the tube say, "Do you have no shame?" Well, apparently nobody has any shame anymore because we're so delusional. Our heads are so far up our asses. Well, I guess you know the rest.
I was trying to.
Yeah, you know the thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know the thing. I was trying to figure out what direction that was going to go, and I was like, this could go either way. Let's see. Okay, well, yeah, appreciate that. You're right, man. Everyone's head is up their hoo-has for sure. Paul in the house. What's up, Paul? Welcome.
I love the question. 10 towards no. Do you want to share a country with, broadly speaking, all these people? The perfect contrast is the QAnon shaman who today got sentenced to 41 months in prison. I think he has credit for 10 already served.
There you go.
The good that does him. They broke him. They tortured him in solitary confinement because that is torture. And he's basically admitting it. To remind you that the press is the enemy of the people. The subtitle for this National Review article, I'm not going to say the author's name because he's not human, like a communist. It is right that we make examples of the January 6th Capitol rioters. My point being, maybe a million, millions, hundreds of thousands of people, and definitely tens of thousands got bailed out BLM rioters.
Yep.
got to do all sorts of crap for free, and this guy gets punished.
Yeah, not only that, but Kamala Harris herself helped raise money to bail out those people that were burning stuff down in Kenosha and across the country. So, yeah,
Yep.
that's absolutely right. Now, personally, I'm glad that he's going to be in jail for 41 months because, I mean, come on. This dude, he's getting charged with obstructing a federal proceeding or something like that. That is a danger to society that needs to be put away. I feel like I might hold a federal proceeding sometime in the next 41 months, and I don't want him coming in and obstructing it, whatever that means, walking around while I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah,
So
walking around yelling,
I feel
waving
much
an
safer.
American flag,
I feel much safer
stealing
that
a
he's in there.
stealing a podium, going to Nancy Pelosi's office. Oh, so much punishment. He deserves to be there.
Yeah, but I'm trying to put the puzzle pieces together so you can see the big picture here because you've got stories like the opioid thing where they're just letting it happen. They love white people dying to drug overdoses. You've got the anti-white Rittenhouse narrative. You've got the anti-white media everywhere. You've got the anti-white this thing that just happened. That again is, it's a January 6th thing, but largely that's part of the anti-white, narrative that they're trying to enforce. And this is all the kind of stuff that you would see, if you were in a country that was, way back against races against black people. This is the kind of stuff you'd see them doing against blacks, letting the law be a little loose for enforcing, or a little more strict based on who you're enforcing it. Anyway, I don't want this isn't going to turn into like a anti-white racism channel or anything. I can just see the picture clearer and clearer every day, and I want to try to also portray that to you guys. Make sure you're seeing it as well, because these stories aren't just about fentanyl or CDC or biking. It's about the bigger narrative that it's enforcing. Let's see. What's up, Miklo? You relate? You better rewatch the first half of the stream. You missed a lot of good stuff. No, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Let's go to Moneypenny, UK correspondent.
Hey guys, this is spinning me out this week. We had the tall and short, little and large scenario, whatever, with my favourite Delaney looking tiny compared to you, Jeremy. But now, something's happened with the lighting. It's very serious, but Delaney looks like Adam and the Ants. Or just Adam of Adam and the Ants. She's got a white stripe across her nose, sort of making her eyes look dark, and then there's a big white stripe across her nose that looks like a Band-Aid thing, like Adam and the Ants used to have. And Jeremy, you've got a similar sort of glow, like one of those before and after shots on a beauty product.
Is it the before or the after?
Interesting thing in the show so far is Moneypenny.
Hopefully it's the after shot, because those are usually the better ones. Thank you for that, Moneypenny. Appreciate that. As critical critique as usual. Let's go to Holly.
Another point about that, with the having to apologize for the stolen lands that we're standing on. The best part about it, and the news isn't covering it, but a lot of those indigenous communities that as white people are apologizing for stealing, some of the bands are actually getting upset because we're mentioning bands that actually were warring and had stole the land from each other. So just by mentioning them together in the same sentence is extremely disrespectful. So we've come full circle. Bad again.
That is the best. Oh my God. I mean, it's true, because, these people were chopping each other's heads off and taking them as slaves and raping each other constantly. That's just a fact of history. So they're upset. It's like when you mentioned, like, New York Yankees and Braves, as if they were allies or something like that together. But tribally speaking, they hate each other. I never even thought of that. That's hilarious. And of course, that is peak white modern ignorance, of just like, well, they're all the same. They're all, we're going to just classify them as all good people. And etc. Of course, we couldn't be farther from the truth. And we're getting a little dose of reality there. That's funny. Thank you for that, Holly. Let's see. PJ Fan says, I can't believe our little weekly narrative family hasn't grown. Yeah, you're referring to like the chat and stuff like that and the viewership. It's because I'm completely shadow banned on YouTube. That's why.
Yep.
There's no organic growth on the channel at all. So you have to share. Okay, if you want to, you have to share it. Just tell your friends to tune in. Okay, yeah, let's go to the next story of the day. This one is. I got to quickly touch on this because there's some questions that we need to ask ourselves. We really got to investigate this one, intellectually speaking. A few weeks back, maybe a couple months back at this point, the U.S. military drone struck a truck that was apparently on its way to the Kabul airport. They killed 10 civilians in the process, and 7 of them were children. So we literally just killed 7 children and then 3 adults they were completely innocent people. So imagine you are going to Safeway or the grocery store with your family. You're all in the car. You're all in the truck. You're just having a great time. You put the radio on. You're listening to your favorite talk show host or some other garbage music that's on the mainstream radio these days, and you're happy. You're gonna get some chips. You're gonna get some milk and bread, and all of a sudden, your car just explodes, and your entire life is over in the blink of an eye. You don't even know what happened. It happened so fast. You're just in oblivion. You're gone, just like that. Because somebody somewhere decided that they had the authority to drone strike you, and they made the wrong decision with bad data, or is it just pure incompetence? We don't know, and that's the question that we're going to raise here. So let's look at the admission from General McKenzie from Fox News. I'm going to play his admission. It's about 50 seconds long. People on stereo won't hear it, but we'll paraphrase for you at the end of it here.
Good afternoon. I'm here to brief the results of the investigation I directed following the report of civilian casualties from our strike in Kabul on 29 August. Having thoroughly reviewed the findings of the investigation and the supporting analysis by interagency partners, I am now convinced that as many as 10 civilians, including up to 7 children, were tragically killed in that strike. Moreover, we now assess that it is unlikely that the vehicle and those who died were associated with ISIS-K or were a direct threat to U.S. forces. I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed. This strike was taken in the earnest belief that it would prevent an imminent threat to our forces and the evacuees at the airport. But it was a mistake, and I offer my sincere apology. As the combatant commander, I am fully responsible for this strike and this tragic outcome.
Okay, so that was McKenzie saying that he fully accepts responsibility for the outcome of the strike. And he said a few things there. He said basically the key thing that I took away was that they said they earnestly believed that these people represented a threat. So, and before I get into that, I got to mention, we've mentioned this before on a previous stream. They lied about this. They said that, what did they say? They said no civilians were killed, something like that. Somebody testified in front of Congress. I forgot exactly the situation that it was, but they already lied publicly about this and said that they did not kill any civilians. So this isn't just this isn't just a mistake. This is a huge lie from what is supposed to be our most competent and most trusted, institution, which is the U.S. military. So they earnestly believed, quote unquote, that this was a threat. So what does that really mean, though? Does this mean that they were dead wrong? So did they have bad intel? Were the people working this just retarded? Is this part of the margin of error that we are expected to allow these people, the military, to operate within? Like, do we just expect, I can't expect perfection. Obviously, I talk to you guys about the perfection fallacy all the time. I'm not ever going to expect our military doesn't kill civilians. That would be unreasonable, but is this within the bounds of reason for their performance level? That's what I want to know. How do we classify this? Yes, they lied, but is this just pure incompetence? Is this the decline of competence, the death of competence in America? We talked about that all the time. Is it is it just blatant disregard? That's the most scary thing. Is it just absolute disregard? And now after the fact, they're coming in and saying, well, it was a mistake. We thought it was earnest threat, et cetera, to cover their ass because they lied about it. So that is what I want to know about this, because that is going to determine what direction are we going. Are we becoming a country that is just going to nuke people from orbit without any kind of regard for whether we're hitting the right types of people? Is the American people going to become complacent about the fact that we're just killing civilians and normal people in the rest of the world? That's not good, because that's how you get to like a Hitler type situation, where people are desensitized to just killing each other or killing humans, civilians, for no reason. So I think this is a little concerning. I don't know. What do you think, Delaney?
Oh, it's very concerning. I don't know if there was the intention of killing civilians. I think it was maybe a combination of bad intelligence and the military just being dumb and not actually verifying the intelligence that the competence thing. But the fact that they lied about it just makes it really kind of suspicious and makes it very kind of ick to me.
Ick, because, and this might be just me, my ignorance speaking, I might not have been on this planet long enough to realize some people are probably yelling at the screen right now, but Jeremy, the military always lies. They always lie. Everything's a lie. Okay, yeah, I think that's probably true. And, for some, we're just starting to see how blatant they're getting. And I think that's what's noteworthy about this, is they just blatantly, we knew when they lied about it that it was a lie, and they still tried to pass it off as a lie. So the fact that they think they could just get away with it like this so easily and so blatantly, and of course all the media is going to support them. Now this is an interesting case for another reason, because that, I don't know if you saw this, but the tweet that I linked to and that we watched was from Aaron Rupar, who's a leftist retard. He's mentally ill, subterranean IQ, and Ilhan Omar, who retweeted it. So I'm pulling this from an Ilhan Omar tweet. So this is something that both sides can agree on. And I think that's also another reason why this isn't really getting any kind of coverage, because it's not divisive. We can all agree that this is stupid, awful, terrible. There's something wrong here that we need to correct, account for, and somebody needs to get fired. That's the bottom line. People have getting fired for sending out, for posting something on social media. This guy does not get fired for killing 10 civilians. I mean, what is the threshold? That's what I want to know. I want to come out of this with an answer to what is the threshold for somebody in the government to actually get fired, because we haven't seen that in how long has it been since anyone in the government actually got fired for incompetence or poor performance or bad outcomes? It has not happened. We live in a post-accountability world now, where you can go and do anything you want, including killing a truck full of kids. And just go on and say, I accept full responsibility. We believe those kids were a threat, and then it just kind of goes away. It's just gone. So where are we? What are we doing here? It's like we're in a post-competence, what's the word I'm thinking of? He won't accept responsibility. Post-responsibility world. And this is not good, because, guys, there's nothing steering us anymore. If we don't take corrective actions to fix our performance, you know what's going to happen, right? We're just going to continue to tank down. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So that's my rant on that. Let's go to the stereo, see what they got to say. Osis.
I don't think it's a death of confidence. What I see it as is a target practice for when they decide to bring it over here.
Yeah,
we'll have some
that's the other
Running
option.
Man style media where Arnold Schwarzenegger tries to stop the people from killing the civilians, and they frame him. We see people getting railroaded here all the time. Just a matter of time before the drone strikes start happening to American citizens. They already have done it overseas. Why not here? They don't want to lose their power.
I've been thinking about that too. With the whole premise of buying land and going remote and stuff like that. I mean, you're never out of range of a drone strike. So if we let the threshold continue to slip and we don't hold these people accountable for doing this kind of stuff, then eventually it will slide to an area where it's like, oops, well, we drone striked our own land accidentally. There happened to be a settlement there of pro-freedom nationalist Americans, and whoops, I accept responsibility. Sorry, see you next week. All right, bye. Holly.
With all of this, the lies coming out of the military, and with Rittenhouse and all of that, it's the power of the internet, and they're trying to silence that, but it keeps popping up like weeds on a lawn. They can't make it stop. I mean, look at how many people are now realizing, because they're watching Rittenhouse's trial online live right in front of our faces, how many people are realizing that the people that Kyle shot were white. Like, it's the same thing with the military. People have access to intel that they never had access to before, and that's being leaked out. This has always been covered up and hidden from us. We just have the power of seeing it now, and that's actually a good thing.
That's right. That's a good point. And they know that too, which is why we saw YouTube scramble to censor all those Kyle Rittenhouse streams because the truth was coming out at the towards the end there, and it's going to continue. That's what obviously what all the censorship is for, is because they're realizing that the internet is an avenue for truth, and it's the only avenue for truth currently. So they got to squeeze down on it, and that is it's also a scary thing. I don't know if there's anything we can actually do to stop the eventual full censorship of that. Let's go to Moneypenny.
Okay, don't give me too much ammunition. American military doing things wrong? No, surely not. Well, this beats it all. So there's a movie coming out from Channing Tatum and Tom Hardy, two great actors, and it's all about the US coming out of Afghanistan after a celebratory strategy. But what? In reality, didn't we have people hanging off planes coming out of Kabul airports as the US legged it out, and then hung around at the gates after every single other country was told to get the hell out of there because there was going to be a terrorist attack, and led to 20 deaths amongst the American military. And they later made up for this by saying, oh, it's okay, we've killed the leader of whoever. But no, it was actually a bomb on civilians. This is not going to go well. This is not a good movie. This is a farce.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how they enforce the lies. That's how they make them happen, and kind of write them into the stones of history, as you will, because you can lie about anything, but as long as you reinforce it secondarily with media, movies, Hollywood, social media, things like that, then that becomes the recorded reality. So they know the playbook and they're playing it well. I don't really know much about that movie, but it's too bad that they're wasting that talent. I do like Tom Hardy.
Yeah, me too. Too bad that Hollywood has nothing better to do than glamorize something that was not something to be glamorized.
Let's see. Let's move on to the main segment of the night here. And right on the money. How about that? Exactly 8 o'clock on the dot. Guys, if you enjoy the content, if you like alt-centrist philosophy, a little bit of a different angle on things, not too emotional, like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends. If you think they might like it, just say, hey, man, come on, join the stream, check it out. See if, it's up your alley. But the point is, you got to get some engagement here. Help us out. Because we give you free content, top tier, $1 million content every week, 7 p.m. PST, right here on youtube.com/weekly narrative, and on stereo as well. You can follow me at Weekly Narrative, join the stereo chat, ask questions, talk smack, whichever you prefer. And
share funny memes
as well. There's a Telegram link that I have to fix apparently in the chat, which I will do right after the stream. And you can follow the podcast on all podcast platforms. It's called The Alt-Centrist. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Google.
Yep.
That being said, let's get into the main story tonight, guys. The title of the stream was, heart attacks galore? Something like that. Blaming the rise in heart attacks on everything. It's getting insane. I've noticed this just in the last week, maybe week and a half, I started to notice these things. It's getting wild out there. And we told you what? We told you 2 weeks ago that Pfizer is kind of hiding. It's because it's not really publicized much, but they're hiding the fact that their myocarditis drug is up like 70 to 80% sales over last year. What a coincidence. And you know why? We all know why, right? It's
I know why. Because of the juice.
Because of the weed, the marijuana. That's why.
Oh my God, not the weed.
Yeah, the devil's lettuce. It's not no vaccines or COVID, nothing like that. We're going to be talking about all the different fun things that they're blaming these heart attacks on, because this is just hilarious. Again, like we talked about, like Holly just mentioned, the media has to cover for the narrative. You can rewrite history by just repeating the wrong story over and over and over again, and this is kind of what they're doing. They haven't solidified yet. The narrative isn't solidified on one unified lie at this point. So we're in a stage where this is early. I caught on to this early, and we're going to dissect what's happening here before they solidify it into one particular thing, because it could go one of many ways. The first of which is marijuana. From medicalexpress.com, cannabis use disorder may be linked to growing number of heart attacks in younger adults. That's what it is. Thanks, Medical Express. At the time of
That
increasing marijuana legalization, a growing number of people under 50 diagnosed with cannabis use disorder, whatever that means, were later hospitalized for a heart attack. New research has found.
okay.
So, rising trends from 2007 to 2018 was most pronounced in the age group 18 to 34, men and African Americans, et cetera, et cetera. The AHA statistics show heart attacks are much less common in people under 50 compared to older adults. And the study suggests people who use cannabis should be followed more closely for possible heart problems. Why? When has this ever been the case? People have been smoking weed for eternity, and all of a sudden, well, it's this weed, heart attacks, man. There's so much. They're smoking so much weed, they're getting heart attacks.
I feel like Willie Nelson has survived as long as he has because he smokes so much weed. To me, weed doesn't give you these health issues. It like makes you live longer and have more longevity. But I could be wrong. According to this study,
it could in some people have a net beneficial effect. That's absolutely true. And I don't know. This is what we're going to see here is a combination of preemptive propaganda, which means in some cases, like one of the other ones we're going to talk about up next, they're anticipating what you might think in the future and kind of planting seeds. Maybe something that hasn't necessarily happened yet. They're planting seeds so that when you come to this topic in the near future, you're going to find that there's like a supporting literature that says, oh, well, yeah, this is it. It's weed. Look, this article says that weed is increased heart attacks. It's not the vaccine. It's not COVID. We need to determine whether or not cannabis is a risk factor for heart disease, particularly in younger adults. Because as we know, young adults think that they're invincible and they're not. Wow, this is top quality commentary from these health professionals here. Thank you for that. And again, they do admit that it's younger adults. Young adults don't have heart attacks unless you're one of those young adults that reads Cosmo magazine and you see the fat 300-pound chick on the cover in the yoga pants and it says this is healthy. If you read that, okay, I can see maybe a correlation there. But in general, no, young people don't have heart attacks, but they got to make sure and create a seed in your brain that links young people having heart attacks to marijuana instead of to
unhealthy life choices.
Unhealthy life choices, but the link that I'm trying to get to here is the fact that the sharp rise we're seeing now is due to the vaccine.
To the juice. To the
juice. All right, and I hear the stereo is just pouring in, so let's hop over to those. Sounds like we finally got hit some nerves here. Kizza.
People like to claim that it's due to a lack of information that people are ignorant. I'm sorry. This entire court case proves that people choose to be ignorant.
Yeah, referring to Rittenhouse.
There is no deniability about this. People choose to be ignorant because of their giant echo chambers. And in this case, exposes so much about the opposition. They're not virtuous. They are a cancer and should be treated as such.
Kizza, as always, dropping the hammer. I just upgraded the Telegram link in the description, folks. So the Telegram should be fixed to go directly to the weekly narrative chat. If you want to join that, we got quite a few regulars in there. We have some lively discussions. You're right. This is the situation where the information is readily available to everybody, and yet they're choosing to sit themselves couched in the lie that they were told because that's more comfortable. And again, I raise the question. I'm not trying to say this needs to be fixed. That's what most people do when they commentate about this kind of stuff. They're like, oh, we got to fix this situation. No, you cannot fix that, first of all. But secondly, you got to decide if that's something you want to try and waste your time trying to deal with for the rest of your life. You only have a finite amount of time on this planet. Do you want to try and spend all your time fixing that or living with that? You know what I mean? Let's go to Holly.
Okay, if the cannabis use leading to increase of heart attacks was a real thing, don't you think that up in Canada after we legalized it and everybody started smoking pot, especially the young people, they would have started having heart attacks at that time? Come on, guys. Correlation.
You would think. Yeah, some places have been smoking it a lot longer than we have, and up until now, we've heard nothing about marijuana causing heart attacks. That's
I
going to
mean,
be.
I've smoked some pretty good weed that makes my heart race and makes me feel like I'm having a heart attack, but that's just the effects of that really good weed.
Actually, that's a good point. As the objectivists that we are, we have to point out that the stuff they're making these days is like scientifically enhanced, completely. It's not like the 70s weed where you could just smoke a pile of it and then you'd be fine. You could walk away and just go eat a bag of chips and you're happy or whatever. This is like, I think back then the THC level was like 2%, maybe 3% max. THC being the active psychoactive compound in marijuana. And these days, they're scientifically making this stuff in laboratories to have the greater and greater levels of THC. The stuff you get these days is like 30, 40% THC. It's like, how could it be 40% THC? It's a plant. It's like half of it is leaf matter. And you're telling me half of that is pure THC? So yeah, you're right. There's some stuff out there these days that's it's crazy, and there might be some link to that. Maybe they're smoking this crazy scientifically enhanced stuff, and that could be having some effects.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole weed industry has been breeding and crossbreeding the strongest plants.
Because that's the marketing for it. When you
Yeah.
want to sell a product, you have to that's the selling point of any kind of weed is ours has more THC.
Or if you're doing wax, you're smoking concentrate, which is way, way, way more powerful than actual flower. That stuff can be pretty deadly. I mean, I've taken dabs before and felt like I was going to die because of a heart attack, but then you just get through it and you're fine.
You're also not 300 pounds, so that might be a different story if you were a little bit bigger and you were reading Cosmo.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
I just don't do dabs anymore because I don't like feeling like I'm going to die and crying because I'm so happy.
I
Because that's
wouldn't-
usually what ends up happening.
I wouldn't like that either. Let's go to Moneypenny.
Hey guys, Dr. Moneypenny here. Yeah, good to focus on this absolute rubbish cover-up about this very surprising, not sudden amount of people having cardiac events, heart attacks. I mean, in the UK, you've probably heard, we've had footballers, professional footballers, super fit, who after a jab have literally dropped in the middle of a football match. And I do think there is something highly suspicious about the Travis event where a lot of people simultaneously dropped to the floor with cardiac events in a sort of hysteria. And then we have a number of people who have never had anything wrong with them at all, have suddenly got thrombosis, blood clots, strokes, and you've guessed it, heart attacks. This just isn't right. And look at one person, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. He's been out of the limelight for the last little while because apparently he wasn't reacting very well to his booster shot.
Yeah, no, he just had to take his kids trick-or-treating for 2 weeks. That's all.
Oh, okay. He's just go trick-or-treating all around California.
Yep. The sports thing is one I've been noticing as well as kind of a subcategory to all this propaganda that I'm seeing now, trying to link heart attacks to all this. I've been seeing these sports guys, athletes dropping from heart problems, primarily in the UK because of all the football. And that has definitely been a new trend as well. So there's something going on there, and it's definitely related to all the weed they're smoking. So let's go to Holly.
And with weed, you don't want to smoke it because that's actually kind of bad for your lungs. Best way is edibles, kids. Come on, bake that stuff up.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
Osis.
Yeah, shouldn't Snoop Dogg be dead like 10 times over by now?
Right.
I do find it hilarious. There's all these pro marijuana. I don't like jokes, period. I think they're stupid. But, weed is whatever to me at this point. Too many people do it illegally to even give a shit anymore. But Snoop Dogg should, probably be dead by now. I mean, I think that guy spent more of his life high than, in a normal state of mind.
Probably.
But it's funny, they've spent all this time trying to promote marijuana and legalize it and all this stuff, and they're willing to throw it all away just so that they can cover for the vaccines. Hilarious.
Right. Yep. It's no conviction, no principles, nothing. Anything is can be thrown under the bus at any point in time. And our actual next article will demonstrate that even further. But let's get through a stereo here from Worm.
Money Penny. God, Miss Money Penny. What up, Nick? What's rocking? And what's up, Weenie, Narrative, and Delaney? How you guys doing?
What's up?
Are you guys talking about that Doc Kevorkian? That one-hitter quitter? Oh, yeah. It's killer.
They probably do have some marijuana strain called Dr. Kevorkian. And
Probably.
And it's probably advertised because of its high THC content. So, Osis brought up a great point. They're willing to throw any narrative onto the bus to further whatever is at the most immediate, whatever has the most immediacy, right? And instant gratification, inability to delay gratification, emotional satisfaction. This is their prioritization hierarchy in their brains, right? So, we always hear relating to health, for example, that you can be healthy at any size. Okay. But this one kind of goes counter to that. So the next random roll the dice. Let's see, what are we going to blame heart attacks on next? It's going to be stress and poor diet. This one is from thetimes.co.uk over there across the pond. And all these articles are recent, okay? This isn't like just random articles over the last year and a half that I'm pulling out of thin air here to try and support my narrative. This is all stuff that has been coming out since the vaccines became prominently distributed. So they're trying to say the rise in heart attacks is attributed to pandemic stress and poor diet. Well, they caught themselves in a little bit of trap there just immediately off the headline, because then they have to admit that the lockdowns and the pandemic reaction that we're having is actually contributing to the ultimate goal of health, right? We're all doing this for our health, but if the lockdowns are hurting our health, the pandemic stress is hurting our health, well, then that's kind of an admission that the people in charge are doing damage to us. So this one wasn't really too well thought out, but let's take a couple lines from this article. Looks like I can't even read it anyway; it's paywalled, but we'll get a couple lines out of here just to get the general gist.
I was gonna say I have it up right now. It says poor diet and stress during the pandemic are likely to have caused a spike in heart attacks in Scotland, according to the leading heart specialist who said there was an outside chance that the COVID-19 vaccinations have played a part. Oh no, they kind of just dug their hole right there.
You admitted it a little bit, but they had
Go ahead, Jer. I was going to keep reading the article. It says Asim Malhotra, a cardiologist and chairman of the Public Health Collaboration, a charity, noted how in war zone heart attacks and strokes often increased among civilians after the conflict had ended. He suggested that the impact of the pandemic might be creating a similar phenomenon, helping to explain a surge in heart attacks caused by partially blocked arteries in the west of Scotland after lockdowns this year.
That's what it is. It's that post-conflict stress. Now, I think with each of these articles, there is a little tiny bit of truth in here, but the general causality, I think, is it's precarious at best. The little nugget of truth here in this one is that people are weak. People are pathetic. Yes, their diet is terrible, and yes, that absolutely is contributing to heart attacks and diseases, but their diet has been horrible for years and years. And just now, after we roll out a vaccine to the entire world, now we're all talking about increases in heart attacks simultaneously in America, in Scotland, in the UK, in wherever else we're going to talk about. Weird how across all these different nations we're seeing the increase in heart attacks. Quite coincidental, I would say. And
I remember like in health class in 8th grade, one of the main things I learned about heart attacks and your cardiac health was that your diet and your stress level has a definite gives you a greater chance of having heart attacks and strokes. So absolutely. I would absolutely agree that the poor diet and the stress of this pandemic is not helping, but it's just one contributing factor on top of all the other bad health decisions that people make for themselves.
Let's take this down the rabbit hole a little bit though. Let's say this is 100% attributed to stress. Okay, stress and poor diet. How stressful is it really, truly, compared to previous pandemics? This is the least stressful pandemic. I don't even have to go to work anymore. I just sit at home
Yeah.
at my computer and I can work. I have all my food delivered to me. Everybody is
Yep.
wearing a mask around me because they've been mandated by the government to follow orders that would make me feel better for no scientific reason. This is the softest, easiest pandemic of all time, and all of a sudden we got like waves of heart attacks and stress-related heart attacks. No, let's go back to like, the Spanish flu. Let's go back to the one that wiped out the Aztecs, where like 90% of them just got smoked out within a week of getting it. This is not as stressful. So that's the point I was trying to make by the fact that we are weak now. So there's a grain of truth in this that it's not that we're unhealthy and we're like, oh, it's so stressful. It's that we're pathetic as a race of humans. Now we've gotten so soft and pathetic. We talked about this on the last stream. Natural selection, physical selection forces, mental selection forces. We're just pathetic. If this is causing people to smoke out from heart attacks, then it's that in and of itself is a bad omen for our civilization. So if you take this article completely literally, it's a terrible omen for our civilization. At best, it's just propaganda cover up for the fact that the vaccines themselves are causing all of these heart attacks. So it's either way, as far as I'm concerned, it's not good news.
No, it's not. I mean, think about it during like World War II and during the Great Depression when they had hardly any food, and there was a real the Spanish flu was running rampant in the country at that time. Well, during the Great Depression, like that made a lot of people stronger. Yes, people died and yes, people suffered, but as a whole, the people that generation after all that came back stronger and able to adapt a lot better. And look at where we've fallen to, where people are having heart attacks because of stress, because of this easy pandemic that people are, mass peoples are dying from. Like, are you kidding me? No.
If anything, they're dying because of the mental stress of this media that they're consuming. That
right?
would be
I agree.
Dari says it's all made up BS. Yeah, it pretty much is. And we're making fun of the anti-English propaganda. Well, you know what, Kizza? Sometimes you need some shame to get back into line, right? Shame is a good social regulator. Let's go to Kizza in stereo.
I object to the notion that English breakfasts are the reason for the increase in heart attacks. I object to this. This is blatant racism and anti-English prejudice right here. As a proud Englishman who has multiple English breakfasts, I could tell you I'm in way better health than any of these vegan fucks. Okay? And I can prove that with my sperm count, unlike these cunts, okay? This is blatant racism right here. I'm tired of this Anglophobic bullshit. Okay,
Right.
We need more English breakfasts. God damn it!
It's true that
And this is why we need kidserism.
the eggs and bacon is probably a better breakfast than having Lucky Charms. Which, again, if you go back to the episode we did a few weeks back, they would say
It was a couple weeks, yeah.
eat the Lucky Charms, not the eggs. So
Yeah.
is that
Eat the processed sugar, not the eggs and the bacon that was produced on a farm.
Yep, further propagandizing and kind of ingraining that lie into your head too. Like, guys, you're not eating Lucky Charms for breakfast. Like, you're supposed to eat Lucky Charms with the marshmallows, extra marshmallows, not eggs and bacon and protein. Anyway, that's funny. Let's go to Holly.
I would add that this has been stressful. I mean, there are people losing their jobs, people losing their houses, the emotional toll that this has taken on people. So of course that's going to increase cortisol. Also the alcohol consumption that skyrocketed through the pandemic.
Yep.
So there were a lot of people that made a lot of really poor life choices.
Yes.
So that could be a contributing factor. I mean, there's a lot of people as well that slacked off on their physical health. I mean, people weren't allowed to go outside and walk around in the sunshine, just stayed on the couch. But I don't know. I don't think it's all contributed to that. I do think that there are other things that are adding to this rise in cardiac events.
Yeah, no, everything you said is absolutely true, and I'm allowing for that to be a contributor as well. And in the weekly narrative here, as an outcentrist, of course, we don't say that this particular thing is caused by this. I like to use pie charts, and I like to have slices of pie because I like pie.
I love pie.
I think I would be participating in a pumpkin pie eating contest, and in about 10 days. Actually, that's gonna be fun. That's how much I love pie.
Yes.
But it's an easy way to kind of show the contributing factors, because nothing's a single variable problem, except for lockdowns in California and most of the U.S. based off of hospital capacity. That's the one thing that's only a single variable problem in life. Everything is contributing, and I think everything that she said absolutely contributes, but I don't think it's the biggest contributor. Let's go to Moneypenny.
Oh my God, yeah, you're right. It's not the English breakfasts. I went to New York and San Francisco. I tell you, you guys eat more than a bloody piglet on a piglety party. I've never known the size of the portions you have in the US.
Oh, yeah.
It's no wonder there's heart attacks going on. We also drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of chocolate.
That's true. Yeah, you guys do drink a lot of beer. This next one is a fun one. This one was my favorite personally, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this one as well. So, if it's not weed, if it's not, if it's not a food, it's not a drug you consume, it's not your personal health habits, well, then what else is there that could be contributing to it? Well, it's the weather, guys. It's the weather. It's the seasons. Seasonality. Winter is causing the increase in heart attacks. That's right. Winter itself. Remember that old claymation cartoon, Winter was the bad guy or whatever, or the good guy. I can't remember. That's I can't remember his name. It's too old. Anyway, from Hindustan Times, which is obviously an international. Guys, I'm telling you, this is international. Okay, everywhere we go across the world. Winter season may spell trouble for people with heart disease, as several studies suggest increase in cardiovascular events like heart attack, heart failure, and arrhythmia during winter. And I don't know about you, but up until this day, this very day today, I have never once in my life heard anything about winter and heart attacks, except for the one case where there's an increase when people go out to like shovel snow and they have increase in heart attacks from the physical exertion. But it's not just the winter doing it. It's the physical exertion that they have to do, which is obvious. But anyway, winter season in India is awaited by many as the chilly weather lets us indulge in great food and endless cups of tea and coffee. The season, however, may spell trouble for people with heart disease, as several studies suggest increase in cardiovascular events like heart attack, heart failure, and arrhythmia. Also, coincidentally, side effects of the vaccine. As temperature drops, our body and heart have to work extra hard to maintain a healthy body temperature. This may strain our heart and increase the risk of heart failure in people whose heart function is not up to the mark. Seriously? Has anybody else ever heard this narrative before? When have you heard a warning as winter is approaching that watch out for heart disease as winter, guys? Increased risk of arrhythmia. I mean, seriously.
I've never in my 29 years of existence have ever heard of winter causing more heart attacks.
So I will allow for a possibility of confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is, we're looking out, we're conscious of the fact that the vaccines cause heart issues, so we would subconsciously associate things like this. And that's why I'm a legit channel, and that's why this is legit philosophy, because we acknowledge things like unconscious bias, and we openly admit that we could be potentially victim to, not unconscious bias, but confirmation bias. But still, and that's why I ask you guys, have you ever heard the winter causing heart attacks all of a sudden? Let me look at chat here real quick. They're making stuff up. Global warming is early. Yeah, see, I don't think anybody else has ever heard this before either, but that your heart has to work hard during winter to maintain a healthy body temperature. What? I lived in the northern parts of Michigan, probably one of the coldest places in America. Literally, I think it's the city that I lived in was colder than Alaska on average because it was close to the Lake Superior. And never once, it's full of fat alcoholics up there, and you didn't hear anything about, hey, you shouldn't drink 10 gallons of booze every day up here in the winter. We didn't hear anything about, hey, take care of your body during the winter. If anything, it was the exact opposite. It was like, hey, no, sit in your house and just get blasted every day, because it's winter, there's nothing to do. Never once in the 9 years that I lived in the frozen tundra did I ever hear anything about heart attacks in winter. But all of a sudden, now that we've done a mass rollout of vaccines, it's, hey, watch out for winter.
Right. Look out for the winter bug, because you might be getting a heart attack from it. I can maybe understand that during the wintertime, there's the holidays, there's a lot of stress going on. People aren't really eating as well as they normally do because it's holidays, and everybody likes to get fat for the holidays, and just Reese's peanut butter pies and all that stuff. But I wouldn't say that it's the actual weather, that the winter weather, that's causing all of it. It's more along the lines of the stress from all of the other factors going on because during winter time, during the holidays.
I mean, it's going to be compounded tenfold because of the fact that nobody's going to get any presents this year because of the supply chain issues. You know, Santa died to COVID. I don't know if you guys saw that, but last year he died to COVID. So
poor Santa.
He's gone. Who's going to deliver the presents? You know. So yeah, I don't know. Confirmation bias, maybe, but honestly, winter's causing heart attacks now. Come on, seriously, people. Let's go to stereo, see what Holly's got to say about it.
Yeah, speaking of heart attacks and snow, we have snowfalls here in the spring that actually is called heart attack snow. It's because it's very wet and it's very heavy. And if you're not very physically fit and you go and try and shovel this shit, it can give you a heart attack from the physical exertion.
Yep.
So there is heart attack snow in Canada. Another thing up here that could kill you, not just the gooses.
Lethal goose. Yeah, so that's what I was referring to. The snow shoveling that can kill people. Kizza.
I would dare say when it's cold, your lungs actually work better because of the denser air. Which is why if you take a really deep breath in when it's cold, you feel like your lungs are almost about to explode because of how dense the air is. So in reality, breathing when it's cold is actually better. And also being fat also keeps you warmer in the winter. You know?
Oh, there you
and
go.
Also, as we know, because of racism, the cold is extremely racist to people of color.
It is.
You know? But I'm surprised they haven't demanded that the cold is racist.
I'm sure
well,
it's coming.
all that white snow is just super racist.
Yeah,
why can't there be black snow?
Just in reinforcing the white culture, you know, like being on time and keeping lists and stuff like that. The snow being white. Let's go, Osis.
Just from my experience of being in the cold and knowing about cold temperatures and how things are done. Typically in winter, your heart rate slows down because you're cold and you're trying to conserve heat and energy. Why the fuck would you be getting a heart attack during that time period? That is so contradictory to any sense of, I don't know if you'd call it physics, but common sense, I suppose.
Intuition.
That just seems ridiculous. When I work, my heart rate is super slow, and I'm certainly not going, oh man, I'm gonna, my heart rate doesn't start flying and I don't keel over and die. This doesn't make sense. Sounds like BS to me.
I think, and for reference, I think he's referencing the fact that he works in refrigeration, so he would know.
Yeah.
Moneypenny.
Oh, got to bring you up to date with the hot gossip in the UK. Because you mentioned Santa and Santa having a heart attack. Well, it's worse. In the UK, our top supermarket brand, Tesco, has released its Christmas advert where Santa isn't able to deliver presents unless he's got his vaccine passport. So he holds up his little vaccine passport with his green tick. Anyway, there have been hundreds and hundreds of thousands of complaints, so much so that people are boycotting Tesco's. People have stopped shopping there. There are protests going on outside Tesco's, all because of Santa's vaccine passport. I'll put the advert into the Telegram feed. It is hilarious.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, good on you people over there for boycotting stupid ass propaganda like that.
Let me, I'm going to try to pull this up here. Let me play the next stereo as I open this. Osis is back.
This just occurred to me. I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but that's what hibernation is with animals. When it gets cold, they put themselves to sleep and they go into like a catatonic state and slow their heart rates. That's a natural thing that's been happening for hundreds of thousands of years.
True that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's take a look at this Tesco ad here from I don't know if we'll play the whole thing, but it's 1 minute and 30 seconds long. We'll see what's going on here. Stereo won't be able to hear it.
Need a little help?
Oh, don't you worry, my love. This year, nothing's stopping me.
Oh no.
Maybe looks crazy.
Breaking news. Santa could be quarantined.
Next.
Oh no. Oh, he was at the airport and Santa had to present his phone with a QR code and a green check mark. Jesus.
Oh my God.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean this is how they normalize this kind of stuff. It's normal for you to carry around a QR code for yourself. So you're a valid human being. You got to have a QR code though. As long as you have a green check mark and a QR code, that's then your existence is validated, to use the language of the mutants. If you question their pronoun, you're denying their existence. But saying that you can't do something because you don't have a QR code, that's totally not denying your existence or anything like that. Anyway, yeah, that's really bad, and I can see why people are kind of upset at that. The problem is that the people who are pro-vaccine, they're not going to get as excited enough to counteract the effect of the people who are anti-vaccine on that. So you're gonna get people who are upset, saying stuff and coming out, and the pro-vaccine people are just like, oh yeah, no, that's normal. Not enough energy to counteract. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. That was a good one. Let's go to the final one here. This one is maybe the funniest one. Not maybe the least funny one, because we know where the narrative is going. We told you guys this last week that everything is moving towards climate change right now. The final thing we're going to blame the new heart attacks on today, anyway, I'm sure we'll have more next time, but today the final thing we're going to blame it on is, of course, you know it, climate change. We talked last week about the first patient that got diagnosed with climate change. Now, climate change is a medical condition now, according to doctors in Canada, and I'm sure that will be catching on, and we'll be seeing more of that. But this one in particular, this is from a German site. I couldn't find a translation of the actual article. Google Translate wasn't working for me, so we're just going to read the headline now. And the headline simply states that climate change is changing babies in the womb. They are more susceptible to heart disease. Oh, it's the climate that's doing that, not the stuff that the mothers are putting into their bodies that's also been linked many times with reproductive effects. Not that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the drugs and alcohol the mother's consuming while she's pregnant. It's the climate. The climate is making the mother consume all the bad stuff and make her baby come out deformed.
So, of course, you guys know we had to get the climate one in there. They're going to use the climate thing to link anything they possibly can, because that is the next big narrative that we're going to be moving to. And the best link to that is through health. So they found yet another way to link climate change to health somehow. So we've seen people diagnosed with climate change, and now we're seeing babies having heart disease. How does a baby have heart disease? How is that even possible? Heart disease happens through the accumulation of hardened plaque in the arteries and the inability for the heart to pump blood through the blood vessels, things like that. It's like, dude, this is something that's unique to 2021, I think. That's for sure. So, again, confirmation bias or reality. I don't know. I'm open to the possibility, but I think the link is pretty clear.
I'm really impressed by the level of stupidity that it's taking these people to link climate change to heart disease for babies. Like, I'm very, very impressed at how much they're really trying to push the climate change is like going to be the downfall of society through heart disease and health instead of admitting that it's just life choices and how you manage your stress is really what's causing most of these heart attacks. And, the juice, of course, but we don't want to say that and get banned from YouTube.
The juice. Let me see if I can actually translate this page real quick. I just installed an add-on from Chrome, and it did not work. Okay, so guys, this is expect more of this. I think this would be a running kind of thing for us as we start to see. As we'll see in the upcoming segment, we're going to be talking about the boosters and the vaccines and how that's actually not even working at all. So all this is happening really for nothing. That's the worst part about it. But as they continue to try and cover up for the fact that it's not doing anything, they're going to get more and more extreme with their excuses and with their kind of explanations, more elaborate with their explanations as to why this isn't working and why.
Oh, I've got the article translated to English.
Well, if you find anything in there that's I see some numbers in there. I'm just looking for some basic statistics and maybe an explanation as to why. But let me play the stereo while you take a glance through there.
Okay.
No, Delaney, this makes perfect sense. I mean, look at Greta Thunberg. She's clearly not a very healthy teenage girl / young adult.
Yeah.
And no wonder she has a grudge to climate change, because it was climate change that made her. Nothing to do with her parents being left as scum and her mother clearly drinking lots of alcohol. Definitely not to do with that. Absolutely nothing. How dare you insinuate such a thing?
Thank you for that. Yeah, no, you're right. She's definitely not the icon of health. I did get the article translated here. I finally got it to work. Reloaded a bunch of times. So maybe I could just riddle off a couple things here real quick from this. It says, last month, the WHO made a statement that air pollution, which is greater in warm weather, how about that, is much more harmful to humans than has long been believed. At the same time, for the first time since 1957, the most influential medical journals are collectively sounding the alarm. Global warming is a health crisis, in quotes. How about that? Guys, I mean, we're real about this, right? Like, they're turning global warming into a health thing because they know that's how you get people to lock down. That's how you get people to do mandates. It's got to have some kind of more immediate health effects for people to recognize the urgency. And that's how they're making the link to it. So notice that they admit also that since 1957, this is the first time they're finally starting to say it, because we know that this is the narrative now, and it's not as if this is the first time that climate has been called. If it was really happening since 1957, it would have been mentioned at least once since then. But this is the first time in 60, 70 years that we're coming out and saying it. Yeah, what a coincidence. How about that? What's up, RL? Welcome to chat. So, did you catch anything you wanted to point out in the article before we go next on?
I just love how they say, in quotes, without new measures, the climate crisis will become the greatest threat to our health in a few generations. We are already seeing the first effects. 2 heat waves are in the top 10 deadliest natural disasters in the past 40 years. In 2010, 56,000 people died during a heat wave in Russia. And in 2003, 70,000 people died in Central Europe. In comparison, that is 2 to 3 times more than the Belgian death rates from COVID-19 since the start of the crisis until now, but concentrated in a few weeks.
Of course. Well, I think that segues perfectly into the next article we've got here for you guys, and we're going to shift over to more of the climate change narrative here now, away from the COVID narrative. This is an article from the Federalist about what the Pentagon just came out and said about climate change and how they're comparing it to, well, of course, they're labeling it as a threat. Now, Pentagon, of course, is like, the head of all the national security and intelligence for our entire country. So they're the ones making the big decisions, okay? They're the ones who are steering the general direction that our security efforts and our military efforts are going. And they, the greatest military minds in America, have decided, according to retired Admiral John Kirby, who gave a briefing on November 10th, that climate change is just as big of a threat as China.
Oh my God.
So he got asked a question, which is a bigger threat, climate or China? Kirby said, quote, "You've heard the Secretary talk about the climate as a real and existential national security threat, and we consider China as the number one pacing challenge for the department. Both are equally important. Both are challenges that the Secretary wants senior leadership at the Pentagon to be focused on, as well as many others too." So you know what that means, right? If the Pentagon is getting in the game of climate change, it's going to be enforcing things on our own population that we're supposed to be forced to comply with in order to meet the goals of climate change. Because once it's a national security issue, well, then they have to enforce it as a national security issue, the same way they enforce airport security, the same way they enforce, any other monitoring your activities on the internet, collecting every digital activity that you do, monitoring your phones, Patriot Act. That kind of stuff is what we're going to see enacted in the name of climate change, on top of mandates, on top of lockdowns. And I don't know, does that sound hyperbolic? As I'm saying it, I'm thinking to myself it sounds a little hyperbolic, but then I'm also reminiscing on the Patriot Act and the things that Snowden came out and admitted to what was happening, and I don't think it's really that hyperbolic.
I don't think it's hyperbolic at all. I mean, the push for the Green New Deal and all of these measures that the federal government wants to implement on the people to lessen our carbon footprint. It's not surprising to me at all that the Pentagon is getting involved in it. And now they're going to monitor how many miles we drive to go to work, how much electricity we consume to minimize our stress on the grid. Like this is pretty nuts to me how far our federal government is willing to intercede in our personal day-to-day lives on this level.
We got another theory in the YouTube chat there. Somebody says that if the military wants to keep the whole world sick with a virus so they can take a break. I like that, but that's counterintuitive because they need to actually blow stuff up to make money for the military-industrial complex, so probably not as likely. So, yeah, this is it's a monumental change in military strategy. That's what they're calling it. Because now we're going to be fighting the invisible enemy of the climate, which really just means fighting the American people, honestly. At the end of the day, that's what that boils down to. If they're going to try and say that it's a Pentagon as a military entity, they're going to be fighting climate change, that doesn't mean blowing up coal plants in China, which is exactly what you would want to do if you thought your planet was going to collapse in some kind of catastrophe in 9 years and you had to do whatever it took to save it. You would bomb coal plants in China. But instead, of course, this is going to be used to control, monitor, and restrict behaviors of Americans in our own country. So that's great.
You'd think that the whole climate change and the China threat would be kind of one and the same because China produces way more, emits way more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than the United States. So you think that the whole China threat and the whole the whole climate change threat would be kind of like one and the same, and you'd want to put more stress on the Chinese people. But nope, we're going to put more stress on the American people, even though we're not polluting nearly as much as China.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good point. Here's the giveaway that they're being dishonest, and there's some ulterior motives at play. Because if you got asked the question, who's a bigger threat, China or climate change, the general of the military should say absolutely China. But climate, if you want to play both sides, you can say, well, yeah, both climate and China, but China is the number one polluter, so they're still our number one target. They're still our number one threat. Not only are they our biggest military threat, they are the biggest producer of carbon. That is the truth, but of course they don't phrase it that way. They don't frame it that way because they want to take a soft side. They want to balance out any kind of hostility they might throw towards China by saying, oh, but climate change is equally as dangerous. It's equally as a threat. So that's kind of the giveaway. You should make a link and say exactly what you said, which is that China is the biggest producer of carbon, but they don't even mention that. Interesting. Let's go to Stereo, see what Osis has got to say here.
Well, you guys probably don't know this. You're not in the gun culture like I am, but they've been trying to do that with guns for years. They're having the CDC put out studies, and they have this guy Wintemute putting out studies and trying to make gun violence a quote-unquote health crisis.
We talked about that. Yep.
It's their go-to playbook because they know people are afraid, and if they tell them that if they don't do something right away, they're going to be dying and destroying future generations and blah, 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 blah. I know these people aren't going to look into anything objectively. They're going to read a headline, if anything, or listen to the stupid television and obey.
You know what's funny about that is that we covered a story about how they are trying to pose gun control as a health issue a few weeks back. So we were on top of that for sure. But contrast that with the story that we covered today. The first story of the day we talked about how gun control is at the lowest levels of approval ever for banning handguns. Right.
Handguns. Yep.
So they were trying out this narrative. They were trying to put the feelers out there with this narrative that gun control can be linked to a health issue to see if there was anything there, if it was going to get any action, if people would grab onto it. But really, what they didn't account for is the fact that gun control is not popular at all anymore. So they pulled back on that narrative. They didn't push on it. There was a couple stories here and there for a week or two, but then it just kind of disappeared. So it's interesting to see the two kind of clashing narratives come together, and it's interesting to see how they put their feelers out there for narratives. And this is the kind of thing you got to pay attention to. When you see a narrative that's only out there for a week or two, it's because they're putting out sensors. They're trying to see how people are going to react, if it's going to play. If it doesn't play, okay, we'll put it back in the playbook. We'll bring it back out next time. The numbers aren't looking good right now. The survey's coming back, and people don't want to ban handguns, so we're not going to play the handgun health thing right now. But climate change health, that's hot. Let's play that full on,
Yep.
And, by the way, I got called for a survey for the first time in my life, a political survey the other day. Never in my life.
You did?
Yeah, it was a good one, too. They were like, what do you think about Joe Biden? I was like, he's terrible. And then, what do you think about gun control, education, climate change, economy? How's Joe Biden doing on this, and this, and this, and this, and that? And it was great. I totally roasted him. But I was truthful. I was honest about it. And somehow, finally, somewhere in the poll, somewhere on the planet, my views are going to be reflected for the first time ever. And I feel pretty good about that. Finally. Because we read polls and surveys and stuff all day, every day here. And I always think to myself, nobody's ever asked me. I'm America, right?
Same.
I'm part of America.
I've never, right? Same. I've never been polled before. And if I was polled, I would definitely give him a F-.
So I thought that was interesting, and it's good to see that is actually a real thing. Okay, see you later.
Yep, bye.
Looks like
I'll be back.
Delaney's internet went out. We'll get it back on here in just a minute. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's go to Kizza and Stereo.
Well, Jeremy Delaney, this might sound like a controversial opinion, and most likely the minority opinion, but I am all in favor of common sense climate change accordances. So, for example, the state of California should be imposed into a 10-year lockdown, climate lockdown, because of how much of a smog fest it is. I'm sorry, Delaney, I know this is going to affect you, but they need to enforce climate lockdowns in places like California because it's a smog fest, okay? And it'll be better for the environment, okay? So much so that by imposing this, Silicon Valley will be forced to pack up and leave California and move to somewhere like Florida or Texas, who don't have a smog problem, okay? And in fact, why don't we make this global and use common sense climate lockdowns to impose it onto China and India for, I'd say, a good 100 years? How does that sound to both of you two?
Well, yeah, I think it sounds good, but we just got back from China. Because I don't know if you know this, but American officials just got back from China, and they reached a screaming deal. Okay, they came to the conclusion that China was going to stop using coal plants. And that's massive. But there's a little bit of nuance to it. They're not actually going to just stop using coal plants. They're going to cut back on them over a indefinite period of time. Yeah, so it's going to be more of an extended thing. We don't know if or when they're actually ever going to stop using coal. But we did also dedicate to using more solar power in America. And that's great for Americans. But it's actually even more great for Chinese people because they're the ones who make the solar panels.
Yep.
So China kind of got the win on that one too. Now contrast what just happened in China with that deal. John Kerry or whatever went over there and tried to get them to turn their coal plants off. Didn't work. They're not going to do it. They came out winner, win-win for them. They sell more solar panels to America. They don't have to cut down on the coal at all. They just say, yeah, we'll turn one off every 50 years or whatever. And meanwhile, they're making like 10 new ones every year. So complete and absolute scam. Absolutely meaningless. Just like the Paris Climate Accord. Completely meaningless. And just puts America on the puts the bill in America's wallet for all the stuff that the rest of the world is doing and making us conform while they just go to town pumping the air full of contaminants. Let's go to Osis has got one.
Well, here's a little dirty secret a lot of people don't know is our military is one of the greatest polluters in the world. Well, we don't talk about that. We actually, I think if I remember right, we exclude their emissions from our rubric. So we don't take
That would not surprise me.
take ownership of those emissions from all our jets and ships
Really?
and whatever else we have. I don't even know. Check me on that. I might be wrong, but I think that's the case. So if they want to fight climate change, they better start decommissioning.
Yeah, that would be shocking to me. I'm going to look into that because it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, but they are absolutely going to be massive contributors to carbon emissions. I mean, they don't make fuel-efficient vehicles in the military. I don't know if you knew this, but they are the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, all the airplanes that they fly, the ships that they run around in. The ships are nuclear, so that's not too bad. But, yeah, they're definitely not green by any means.
I think about like all the celebrities that fly on private jets and across the planet, and how bad of a contributor they are to the whole climate change issue. That they all like. I love Leonardo DiCaprio because he sits there and preaches about climate change and the deforestation of the Amazon. Meanwhile, he hops on a private plane to go speak at these private events about climate change.
I think Leo DiCaprio just wants to get attention from young women. I don't think he cares about climate change at all.
He definitely does not give a shit.
He doesn't care at all. I think there's a possibility that the celebrities flying around in planes could be a net benefit if they have some kind of overall impact on the climate that's counteracting the emissions that they use from flying around. But I don't see that happening. I don't think that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to agree with you on that one as well. Let's go. Did you notice, actually, by the way, when you flew here, did you notice that plane tickets, when you buy a plane ticket, it tells you when you're looking at the flights how much emissions each flight is? Like, people who want to decide based on the emissions that the flight will emit, they can choose different flights based on how green they are. Have you noticed that?
I've never noticed that.
I went to book my flight. I think it was on Google, and they tell you now the flights. They tell you the price, the departure time and arrival time, and how many kilograms of carbon the flight you will emit on the flight as an individual, which I thought was funny because some people legitimately will make their decision based off of that.
Somebody needs to just invent an airplane that runs off biodiesel if they're so concerned about plane emissions.
We need electric planes. That's what we really need.
Yeah, electric planes or biodiesel planes or some kind of regenerative, not non-jet fuel run plane.
The military's rolling coal. That's right. They absolutely are rolling coal. Military-grade diesel. I mean, just 2 turtles per gallon. They don't measure their mileage in miles per gallon. They measure their mileage in how many animals they kill per gallon of smoke they exhaust. Let's go, Holly.
This, to me, is one of the hardest things to wrap my head around because climate change is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And yes, we're doing horrible things to the planet. And yes, we're outputting way too much carbon. And, like we shouldn't be polluting our oceans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This shit is all true. Mm-hmm. However, the way the narrative is being spun and the way everything's being controlled. And I mean, look at my country. We are one of the gold standard producers of petroleum products, the most ethically and environmentally friendly produced petroleum products in the world. And we are shutting down our oil industry to the detriment of our economy just so that man that I love so much can posture at this stupid thing in Glasgow and then buy our oil from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point. I see you got 2 more stereos here. I want to respond to this one specifically first, though. That's an excellent point, and I want to make the delineation here that yes, climate change is absolutely a real thing. Mm-hmm. Now the question is, there's 2 questions. First of all, what percentage of that is human caused? Which is a question that I've been asking for years. Still haven't had an answer to it. But the bigger question is, how do you actually handle knowing that climate change is a real thing? You can take 2 options. There's 2 major options anyway, the way that I see it. You have the option of simply restricting the actions that could contribute to that, or you have the other option on the other side, which is an active approach, not a passive approach, not reduction in productivity, the active approach, which is an innovative approach, looking at technologies that can actually actively reverse carbon emissions, taking carbon capture, things like that, and finding ways to actively, and for lack of a better term, alter the climate to fit our needs. Because I got into a podcast recently called the Fall of Civilizations podcast. I highly recommend this to you guys. It's right up the alley because this is basically my stream is a Fall of Civilizations podcast, but just for America.
Mm-hmm.
This guy goes through and he goes over the historical fall of all the great civilizations. Sumerians, Akkadians, the Romans, the Han Dynasty, everything. And one thing I'm noticing is that a lot of these civilizations fall because of climate issues. Whether or not you want to believe that, I don't care. It's true. All the early civilizations were coming up off the cusp of the Ice Age. Climate change. That was climate change. There's historical records for all different kinds of ancient civilizations that were arguably more advanced than us at certain, not necessarily technologically speaking, but in other ways, that they disappeared because of changes in the climate. And there's not a situation where cutting back on their emissions or cutting back on their farming would have saved them. They had to actively fight back against it with active measures to find innovative ways to withstand rapid changes in the climate, things like ice ages, things like solar flares, things like lack of solar activity, which is all legitimate climate activity that we need to account for, because our pattern right now, this situation, the strategy that we've resolved ourselves to, which is just a passive sit back, don't produce as much, that doesn't take into account all the other possibilities that might happen that could change the climate. So we're causing potentially our own death by refusing to use the pinnacle of technology that civilization has seen in all time to actively fight back against climate. Instead, we're just sitting here on the couch laying back and saying, well, I'm not going to drive today. I'm just going to reduce my emissions. It's the opposite strategy that we need to be taking. We need to be actively fighting against it with innovation, with capitalism, with technology, learning to fight back and kind of control the climate actively. And I'm not talking about the Bill Gates, blot out the sun with mirrors or dust and stuff like that. I'm talking about take carbon out of the atmosphere if that's what you're crying about. If you're crying about carbon in the atmosphere, let's figure out how to get it out there. Let's figure out how to do, whatever. I don't know. If I knew the idea, I'd invent it and I'd get rich, obviously. But the point is, we're taking the completely wrong strategy, and this could likely lead to, if we're not going to fall apart for civilizational, social reasons, this could lead to our eventual death just due to sheer incompetence and inability to adapt. That's the key. You have to adapt. Yeah, somebody said in chat, it's all cyclical. It really is, man. We got to, if a solar flare comes or whatever it is, you know how screwed we are if a solar flare comes? How well do you think the solar panels work when a solar flare hits?
Oh, we're so screwed. We are so freaking screwed. All the electric cars and all the everything that we've tried to do to counteract it is not going to be any good against a solar flare.
All right, Holly's on fire. Let's go back to her in stereo.
This is another thing that pisses me off about this climate change thing. Solar panels. Has anyone ever in the environmental sphere taken a look at the lifespan, the manufacturing process, or the disassemble and disposal of those solar panels? Those things only last about 20 years. They use an incredible amount of rare earth minerals. And then when they're, decommissioned, they can't recycle them. So they just go into the garbage. People. Same with windmills. I'll shut up now.
Again, no foresight. We can't look into the future to look at consequences, cause and effect, A, B, connecting the dots between points in time. We can't do that. What feels good right now? But just install more solar panels.
You guys, anyway, Leonardo DiCaprio was filming a movie up here in Alberta and experienced a Chinook. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a warm wind that comes in the wintertime, and the temperature goes up like 30 degrees. It's pretty crazy. All the snow melts. He had a hissy fit and then came back to Canada on his private jet to tell us lowly Canadians that we need to do something about our climate change because he experienced it firsthand. Ugh, this
Nice.
climate shit, it pisses me off so much.
She's fired up.
Hell
She's
yeah.
got one more here. This one's going to be good, I can tell.
Okay, and this is my last point about climate. I totally promise. Canada as a nation as well, because of our forests and especially our boreal forest, our country's landmass absorbs, I think it's 3 times the amount of carbon that our oil industry puts out. But that's never talked about. So
Right.
it's the way everything's been twisted, it drives me almost to drink. Maybe I should go smoke a bowl.
There you go. Yeah,
Yes.
I just saw a story about great point, and I want to add on to that with a story I just saw from the UK about forest growth in the UK and how that's being completely ignored because they've got like 80% forest growth over the last, whatever it is, like 50, 60 years, because back in the industrial age when they didn't have any electricity, they had to burn trees for everything. All the trees in the UK got cut down because they had, the Industrial Revolution and whatnot. And now, with the carbon in the air, the plants absorbing it, and the fact that we're not cutting the trees down anymore, the forests are having a surging comeback. And it's the same thing, I believe, with the Amazon. Same thing with the forests in Canada. All these forests are growing massively. You don't hear any stories about forests dying out anymore, do you? How long has it been since you heard a story about forests dying out? That used to be a thing. Remember? It used to be a thing. Not anymore, though. Wonder why.
Oh, I remember it was like I think it was like over 5 years ago when the Amazon was on fire and everybody was blaming it on climate change and blaming it on the mass tree deforestations. And now the Amazon is doing perfectly fine. There's like a bunch of tree growth going on. People just don't realize that a lot of the time when the logging companies go in and cut down the trees, they usually send people in to go plant new ones.
Yep.
They don't want to talk about that. All they care about is being hyped up and trying to save the trees and trying to save the Amazon, but don't even realize that there's a lot of conservation efforts going on to help with all of that.
There was a talk show host clip of somebody in the UK, a radio host, I believe. I don't know who it was. I'm sure somebody in chat will know what I'm talking about, but it was somebody called into the show, or it was a guest. He came on to get interviewed about how he's using wood as a renewable resource. And, these people who are a little more daft, kind of the green energy people, they don't realize that trees are a renewable resource because you can plant another one. And he got mad that this guy came on and started talking about the fact that trees, you could chop it down and then we plant another one and it grows back. And he got pissed because, like, how could you see that as a renewable resource? You're destroying the trees. It's like, woo. I mean, we're dealing with some massive subterranean IQ on these guys sometimes with this. But, yeah, you're right, Holly. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And Delaney dropped off again. Go to Kizza for, I think, probably the final stereo. We'll give Kizza the last word, which is probably ill-advised, but here we go.
And Jeremy, what you want right there is exactly why we need Kizzerism. Shameless plug, but I have many ideas of how to fix these problems. And there's going to be so much filthy free market capitalism and innovation to the point that all the great corporations, especially on Wall Street, will hate my guts and will nickname me the Grim Reaper since they'll all be destroyed by the free market.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because the free market is a scythe against the incompetent, the inefficient, and the useless. And that's what most corporations are these days. All three of those things. Shameless plug is shameless plug. And this is why I should be supreme emperor of the entire Western world.
Thank you for that. Yeah, well, the problem is free market's never been tried, just like capitalism. It's never really been tried. We don't have a free market right now. If we did, we wouldn't have these problems. And RL says in the YouTube chat, weren't they saying that the overgrowth was leading to all the fires in California? Wasn't the overgrowth, it was the refuse that they didn't clean up due to poor management. So it was the old dead stuff, not necessarily the overgrowth. It was the old dead stuff that was just laying in the forest they never cleaned up. And they were just like, oh, I wonder why the whole place is on fire. Okay, Moneypenny here for the last one. She gets the last word today.
Thanks for a great show, guys. Just one question. If you were going to recycle your presidents, which one would you bring back? And why?
I think probably Teddy Roosevelt, because he just seems like a badass.
Yeah, I agree. Teddy Roosevelt, a lot of people don't realize that under his presidency, he was the first president to start the whole national parks and the whole conservation efforts when it comes to forests and landmarks in the United States of America. I thought that was totally badass. and all of his big stick diplomacy efforts in the Panama Canal was pretty badass too.
Didn't he build the Hoover Dam also? Was that under his presidency?
I don't know if that was him.
Yeah, it was. Because when has America built great, gigantic things that we can all look to and say, look at how great we are now? The Hoover Dam is one of those things, and I think that's what resonated with me the most, is like we have giant national projects like that back then that can show off our competency. But of course, we talk about it all the time, death of competency. We don't have those kind of things anymore. We don't build great things.
Yeah, not to mention the amount of people that it took to create and build such a marvel as the Hoover Dam. The amount of jobs and the growth that it created, the maintenance that the dam requires to be running and to generate electricity and all that stuff. Like, people don't care about that. They see dams and they think, "Oh my God, that's terrible."
Yeah, and I got to fact check myself. It wasn't Teddy Roosevelt. It was Franklin Roosevelt. So I was right. It was a Roosevelt, but not the right Roosevelt.
It was anyway, not the right Roosevelt.
My narrative still stands. The point is, we don't do great things. We don't have like great leaders like that anymore. And with that said, I think we're gonna wrap it up, folks. 9:08, pretty good. Close to 2 hours here. As usual, join the Telegram. I fixed the link in the description. If you guys want to join the chat, we're chatting all week long. You can share stories, interesting things, reactions to things like the Rittenhouse trial, which I'm sure we will all be watching tomorrow. So jump in on that if you want to participate. Get in on that. Follow me on YouTube, and I'll get Delaney back in here just for the finale so you can see your face as we go.
Okay.
She's going to fix her internet. Don't worry. She's got it in progress.
Yeah, I'm working on it, folks. Sorry.
Every Wednesday, 7 p.m. PSD, right here, youtube.com/weeklynarrative. And I think that's about it.
Yep, sounds good to me. You guys all have a great night. Lots of love in California.
See you guys next week.
All right, bye.